Well, hello everyone, and welcome to our 7 winter wellness strategies for the whole family. I am Bethany Thompson with Ingrained Nutrition Therapy, and I'm so glad to see all of you joining us tonight. Many of you are people I know. Some are new to our community even as of this past week because you heard about our webinar, maybe you had a friend who told you about us. And I will just say this is going to be very low key this evening. I'm in my dining room and I have a lot of things around me that I want to show you, as usually happens during times when you're getting ready for something really fun and big. Our hot water heater decided to leak this morning, so I spent the day kind of taking care of that, and you know what it's like. So this is just real life and kind of talking about how do we do health in real life. So I'll get started in a minute or two. I'm going to let us kind of take some time, but just for housekeeping notes, this is my first time ever to host a webinar. I've been a participant many times, but there's always little technical glitches. But I will tell you, most of the time, if you have a technical glitch, probably something to do, you might want to click out of the meeting and join back in. So just also contact Zoom support if you're having any problems. I am going to try to see if we have any. I'm trying to see what we can do for question and answer. So if any of you have questions for me, I mentioned I was going to have a question and answer time at the end. So I'm going to see what we can do with that. If not, I may just have, I might have to have you email in questions and I'll answer them a little bit later on. So I'm trying to share a screen with you right now. I'll do a basic PowerPoint presentation. You're not going to get any fun slides tonight. I decided to spend a lot more time just gathering some things that I like to use for my family, supporting immune function and just to talk very more relaxed function. So we should be over about 7:40 tonight. And I'm recording this right now. If everything goes well with technology, we'll go ahead and send that out either later tonight or tomorrow. And then because you've joined me tonight, and if you can stay around to the end, I've got some special bonuses for you that I want to offer, including our Winter Wellness Toolkit. And so that is something that's going to roll out over the next few days and week, just to help support you with further resources to help make your wellness sustainable for your family. So I'm not sure that I can see a show of hands right now, but who of you have already had some sniffles or maybe more serious illnesses in your family? It's upon us. Winter is here. Maybe fall, but you know, winter's here. So anyway, we're going to try to go ahead and focus in on what we can do to help support our body during the time of when it's much more likely to get sick. So this is wellness for the whole family. Some of you have little bitty babies, and I know some of you have grandbabies, and that's a very exciting time. And you're kind of thinking through how can you take care of your family and your health. And so I'm going to, let's see, we have new people joining us. And so welcome to our Winter Wellness webinar. I'm just going to go ahead and dive right in. And for some of you who have been a client of mine, we've talked about this before, and this cartoon I think is just really funny because sometimes we can feel like this lady and everything in our labs looks normal and we can't figure out what's going on. Or maybe you have a child like that and you're trying to figure out what can I do to stay well, because every single winter we get this stuff and it lasts forever, or my child has a constantly dripping nose, or you just seem to catch every cold that comes around, or stomach virus, or that type of thing. So that's what we're going to talk about tonight, is how to support your immune system to fight that off naturally. So just a disclaimer though, that I am not your medical practitioner necessarily. Some of you may be my clients, and we can kind of talk on the side if you want to know if this applies to you, but not going to be held liable for any of the things that I bring up today. This is for educational purposes only, and make sure you run anything that you decide to try that's different or new by your doctor, including supplements. Just because something is natural doesn't mean it's not powerful, that it may not interact with the supplements that you're already taking, or interact with a prescription medication or another healthcare regimen that you're involved in. So just want to encourage you to do that one. But This is a diagram that a dear friend of mine, a new friend from the past few years, created for me to help me convey the idea of what I call a sustainably wholesome lifestyle. So that's what we talk about with Ingrained, is not necessarily healthy living. I don't really like the word healthy, but wholesome, and that encompasses body, soul, and spirit. We are a whole people. And I like to think about these different areas that we can focus on and think about when we're talking about building health that lasts. And if you've been and sat down with me at my dining room table before, you've seen this in a picture frame. But we start at the center with rest, and we move outward to create. So as we go throughout the night, I will be talking about these 7 different areas and how that applies to immune health particularly. Obviously, we don't have that long to get really in depth. I like to get very scientific sometimes, but we're going to try to keep it at a high level with things that are very applicable to you. We're going to start with rest. And rest is the foundation of a sustainably wholesome lifestyle. I'm going to go ahead and right now stop sharing my screen just so you can see me. And I want to make sure that you can see what I'm doing. So I can't see you. I can't hear you. That's okay. But if you have questions and you want to put them into the chat function, I think you should be able to see that at the bottom of your screen. It's a little bubble icon. And I don't think that everyone can see it. But if you want to ask a question, you can just ask a question there, and I'll try to get to questions at the end. Or if I don't have time for that, then I'll answer those in the coming days through email or some other quick videos that I shoot to you. Okay, let's see. So we're starting with rest because it seems like a little bit of an unusual. Maybe I should start with vitamin C or elderberry or something like that. But we're starting with rest because when our body is worn down and we're stressed out perpetually, not just one day of hard things, our body's immune system cannot fight off the infection that it needs to. So there are 2 parts to our immune system. There's the innate immune system and our adaptive immune system. So one part of it is more of like a chemical side. It's the big guns that our body brings in when we really have a foreign invader, a virus that's going around. We really have to fight it off. And then one part is more of the just kind of everyday barriers, things that we do to kind of continue to protect ourselves from the outside world. Our body is made up of so many different parts that help us fight off infection. And the first really line of defense that we have against infection is our GI tract. So a lot of times we get infections through our food or something that goes in our mouth. And even the very stomach acid that we have helps us to ward off infection. Keeping the acid level high will help us to destroy the pathogens before they reach further down in our system. However, when we're chronically stressed, as some of you know, you've seen your own lab results, our stomach acid will decrease and our body no longer has that barrier in place. So even the very small, what kind of seems like small and insignificant fact of low stomach acid can affect the rest of our body. We can be more susceptible to viruses or bacteria, parasites, and things like that. So rest, I say, and I'll say again, is the core of a lifestyle that's sustainably healthy. And for some of us, I'm going to give some practical tips for even sleep. So I'm talking about sleep, but I'm talking about more than sleep. When we first think of rest, we're thinking of sleep. So during this winter season, when we're so much more susceptible to illness, we're busy, we have holiday parties, everybody has something going on, we're running around like crazy. Prioritizing sleep is one of the first things and the most important thing that you can do to support your immunity. That's going to be even more important than eating all the good foods, taking all the elderberry. Those things are never going to be able to overdue or overcome lack of sleep. So for adults, I like to say at least 7 hours of good quality sleep. If you can get 8 or 9, that is excellent. But 7 hours sustained every night is going to be a lot better than 5 hours, 4 hours during the weekday, and then making up with it 10 hours on the weekend. So one of the things that your body does at nighttime, and particularly happens in the early hours is something called autophagy, which is the process of your cells in your own body destroying things that are kind of coming in as foreign. And so it's almost like going through airport security. Your body says, is this one good? Yep, leave it. This one's not good. We're going to toss that one out. So allowing our body to have time to process things and get rid of what we don't need and repair damaged cells is important. That same process can happen through intermittent fasting. If some of you have done some research on that, I'm not talking about that tonight necessarily, but at nighttime when we haven't eaten, we haven't had something in our system, we're not having carbohydrates and protein and fat going on through all the time, our body is at a state of rest. We're not processing and digesting. So that's one thing I would just encourage you to prioritize rest for your family, for yourself. Don't skip it, even for children. And I'm very big on children being in bed at a good time. So it's not worth them staying up late at night, especially on screens or tablets. And even when my children are sick, I try to keep these screens off in the nighttime. I know we might watch an extra movie or two during the day, but in the nighttime, keeping those screens off, those are going to interrupt your sleep. And I did not bring them in here, but I have some really goofy looking glasses that I wear that help block the blue rays. So at night, if I'm going to be on the computer, I've learned the hard way that if I have to do work at night, I have to make sure that I wear these blue blocker glasses. They're black and nerdy looking, and I'll include a link when I send you your winter wellness toolkit. But that's something that can block the blue rays from artificial light that interfere with your sleep and your circadian rhythm, which is the rhythm of rise and fall that we need kind of naturally to regulate ourselves. So that's one thing I would really encourage you to do. If you're having some trouble though with sleep, I'll send out a few quick tips on this one, but establishing a bedtime routine for yourself is going to be very important. Putting yourself to bed, just like you would put your kids to bed. Something soothing, something you enjoy to read. If you stay off of your phone, it's a good thing, or at least turn it to a mode that's not as glaring. There's options for that now, and there's apps for that. But picking up a book, find something that you enjoy reading at night, something maybe a little bit new, and not too intense. I try to stay away from my scientific books at nighttime. But then go ahead and try something that's more calming. Maybe a cup of chamomile tea. So this is one of my favorite chamomile teas. I picked this up at Trader Joe's, and it's an organic chamomile. That's nice and soothing. Extra benefit, that's really soothing for your GI tract as well. That's just a very gentle way to calm yourself at night. Or there's another type of tea that I really like called a vanilla rooibos, I think. I have know someone who knows where this comes from, and I don't think I'm pronouncing it correctly, but rooibos tea. And vanilla is very soothing, calming, doesn't have any caffeine in it. Definitely want to stay away from caffeine, like past 2 o'clock in the afternoon at the very latest, not having any caffeine, because that stays in your body system a lot longer than you think it does, and that really can impact your sleep. Another thing, if you're really feeling like at nighttime you're just wired up, you can't relax, two of my favorite things to use. One would be, first line is some good magnesium. So I use something called Magnesium Glycinate. It's a magnesium chelate. It's different than what you would typically buy at the store, which is like a magnesium citrate. Can make you have diarrhea. We've talked about that if you sat with me and you mentioned, hey, magnesium just didn't work for me. This is something that can actually cross your blood-brain barrier. These capsules are not very big. I'm going to kind of show you how big it is. And I usually start with 2 at night and see how you're doing. We'll start with 1, see if it's calming for you, and then you can go up to 2. You can take that right before you go to bed with some water, an hour before bed. Just relaxing to the muscles, to your mind. It can be part of a good bedtime routine. And then if you still need a little extra help with the magnesium, you can take 2 in the morning. That's going to be perfectly fine. That's something that's fine to do without testing. And I'll tell you at the end how you can access the supplements I'm talking about, just so you get a good quality supplement. Another thing you could do is just take an Epsom salt bath or a foot soak. So if you're going to take a bath, I'd put 1 to 2 cups of Epsom salt in some warm bath water. It's a nice way for your body to just relax. You can add some lavender oil to that if you want to. And soak for at least 10 minutes in a tub. If you're going to do a foot soak, about a cup in a gallon of water. Soak your feet. It's really nice. A good way to take care of yourself a few times a week. And then another that I really, really like to help with sleep is called This is magnesium glycinate, but it's also bound with some inositol, which is really nice to help a nice calming effect, also good for hormone balancing, kind of relaxing, helping to regulate your body. And this can be taken at night and in the morning, but it's really nice at nighttime. You just take a scoop of this, dissolve it in some water. I'll show you, this is just a white powder. It doesn't have any extra flavors or anything else added in there, which I like. A lot of times you may be reactive to some certain supplement ingredients. There might be too many things. So this is a very, very basic powder. It doesn't really taste like anything. You could put it in your chamomile tea if you wanted to. So I'll give you a link for this. This is called Synatol. I'll give you a link for this at the end too. So that's it for the sleep. But if we're talking about stress in general, because I'm going to spend a little bit more time on this rest portion, some things that may seem like it's not directly supporting your immunity are actually supporting your stress response. So for someone who is busy, has a crazy schedule, can't quite slow down even though you've tried, maybe you're a caregiver for someone with special needs or an aging parent, that's just going to be chronic long-term stress you really can't combat. And so I like to make sure I pull in a good multivitamin to begin with. And we'll talk a little bit more about that later. And then you may need an extra layer of support with a B vitamin supplement, which a full B spectrum vitamin really helps our stress response. And I'll share with you my two favorite ones for that. I want to make sure that our B vitamins are in the methylated forms and the minerals are in the chelated mineral form. I will tell you, I have not found anything like that in a traditional grocery store usually. Not a grocery store at all, certainly even like a Whole Foods. So this is something I do order. This is a brand that I really trust called Designs for Health. I don't buy them off of Amazon. You don't know and you can't trust how long something sat on a shelf. So I buy it through a distributor that I know and trust. And then sometimes you may need a little extra. So there's some blends for your body that we can use called adaptogens. I have one right here. This is in a kind of like a tonic. It's called Stress Manager. They might need somebody to manage their stress. It'd be really nice. And this is a blend of some euthero and reishi mushroom and holy basil, shashandra, rhodiola. This is something you just put in your water and take twice a day. So some of you may be interested in that, or if you're more of a capsule form, I have another capsule. I'll share with you some specific names and things like that. At the end, I'll probably be emailing those to you so you have them in writing and know what I'm talking about. So that's where we are with the rest part. And then we would move on to nourishing. And so I'm a dietitian. Food is very important, and we cannot ever out supplement a diet that is poor in nutrients. You can take as many multivitamins as you want, and you're just never going to get quite enough in the same kind of blends, because in foods, there are compounds that work together. So for instance, in an orange itself, taking vitamin C capsules can be helpful, and it's often very helpful for people. But eating an entire orange, completely different absorption of the vitamin C, because it's bound up with other what we call polyphenols and some plant-based nutrients called phytonutrients that really help your body absorb vitamin C that's in there. So one kind of basic thing that I like to do, if you're going to be having lots of citrus in the wintertime, I like to take a whole orange, and I don't have one yet because I haven't found any good ones yet, a whole orange, and I take the zest off of the outside of the orange with a microplane zester, and I will show you a picture of that too. You'll have that in your email. And I take the outside, the yellow orange part of it off, and I use that zest to go in like oatmeal. You can put it on top of salads. It adds a bright flavor even to some soups, so even top of some chicken soup, kind of a different effect. And that gives you some inositol that we're just talking about in our other supplement. Very good in balancing for the system. Good source of some flavonoids, which help your body combat infection, oxidative stress. And then also I cut, so after I've taken the zest off of the orange, I'll cut the white part off, the pith, that kind of thick, spongy white part. And so you're left with the inside of the orange. It's like a naked orange ball. And then I'll just put that entire orange into my blender. So versus an orange juice, you're going to get a lot more nutrients that way, much more cost effective if you're using the whole orange. And I have a recipe online where I use, it's called a sunshine smoothie, and I use the whole orange and the zest in the smoothie. One thing with the zest that you can do is if you have a lot of oranges and you don't think, if you have a lot of oranges and you don't think you're going to use all of the zest at the time, you can freeze that orange zest. I have a little container, a little glass jar of orange zest in my freezer. I just scoop out a little bit to add in some muffins sometimes, or in a smoothie if I want to add some bright flavor. It doesn't take much and it tastes delicious. So if you have any citrus fruits sitting around right now, or if you buy lemons and limes, make sure you wash them very well. And even in grapefruit, you can do this. Wash them very well and then harvest that zest off of it, but don't waste it. So that's just one idea of using a whole food as medicine in your kitchen. But one thing I do want to also encourage you when we're talking about nourishing our body is to think about eating a rainbow of foods. And this is not a new concept for you. I know we've talked about eating the rainbow if you worked with me, or just in general kind of push in the greater American nutrition scene of things. But eating a rainbow will ensure that you have foods from so many different food groups and variety of foods. And so we've even seen research that shows that the more varieties of foods that you eat, the more diverse the bacteria are in your intestine, which is a good thing. We want lots of different types of bacteria because if you remember, your intestine is your first line of defense. So having a good balanced blend of bacteria and even good yeast and things like that will help your immune system. And so eating a variety of different colors of plants is going to ensure you have lots of different kinds of nutrients and will feed lots of different types of bacteria. So I'm going to be sending you something called the Phytonutrient Spectrum of Foods. I'll give it to you in color. And it talks about how to get red, orange, yellow, green, blue, purple, black, and then white, even white foods, which are important, into your diet. And we'll give you even some ideas for some different things. So one thing I would like to challenge you to do is every week find one new type of herb or spice or fruit or vegetable to try, or maybe even a bean. And this is something that you can involve your children with. This is something they're going to get excited about. So my kids love to go to the grocery store and pick out different fruits, zany looking things. The most recent thing we tried was something called, I can't remember what it's called now. We just called it a monster fruit because it had this like spine sticking out of it. And rambutan is the name. It's just a really funny looking fruit. I made up a funny name for it and my kids tried something different. Some of them liked it, some of them didn't like it. But you end up discovering things that you enjoy when you peruse the grocery aisles. The other thing is that you're going to want to shop seasonally. If I can't find something in season, I will look in the frozen section. So for instance, organic berries, which are really important part of what I do. I try to get a lot of berries in. One, they're lower in sugar and really high in antioxidants. I do blueberries and blackberries and raspberries and strawberries, and I get a blend of those, and I use them a lot in smoothies or putting them in oatmeal and that kind of thing. Well, this time of the year, buying organic berries is completely unaffordable. So I'll just find them in the frozen section and keep them ready to go. But sometimes there are going to be more things that are more readily available, like we mentioned the citrus. So as we're coming to the citrus season, a lot more root vegetables too. So thinking about how you can combine those things to make a very pleasing to the eye plate and also something that tastes really good. And one more thing I'm going to go ahead and challenge you with when it comes to food and nourishing your body with food is don't forget the herbs and spices. So herbs and spices, and even things that we would kind of think of like pot vegetables, or they would have called that a long time ago, onions and garlic are things that contain sulfur, really great for immune fighting benefits. Load up on those. Or even if you're making a spaghetti or a chili, and what your recipe calls for is 1 teaspoon, why don't you try doubling that of the spices and see how you like it. So it ramps up the flavor a little bit, but also is going to give you a lot more immune fighting compounds. Things like oregano and basil are really, really nice for, particularly oregano for fighting immune fighting, but also anti-inflammatory benefit, which helps calm down that immune response. Sometimes our body's so ramped up and revved up and inflamed that we have to help calm it down so it can start fighting things like it needs to. So spices and herbs are very anti-inflammatory. I will say, if you have had your spice and herb in your cabinet for more than about 6 months, deep breath. You're going to need to go ahead and toss that out, and you're going to need to buy some new. Now, before you hyperventilate, you can space it out a little bit. Maybe buy one new spice or herb a week or every 2 weeks if you can. I will say though, I buy mine in bulk. I can't remember, I thought I had a package in here, but I order through a company called Azure Standard. I'm gonna send you a link, but I've found this to be one of the best sources for spices and herbs. And I buy a package of it, usually organic if I can. I really do look at the source of where it's from. And I put it in my freezer. And then I just use little jars at a time of it to scoop it out, because we use a lot of spices and herbs at my house. And then use what we need so it doesn't go bad. So it keeps longer in the freezer. That's a good way to store your spices and herbs. So those are certainly an investment and a way to eat the rainbow too. So last night I added an extra 2 teaspoons of turmeric to my chicken and rice bone broth soup. And that was a good way for me to get some yellow in, even though I didn't have a lot of yellow vegetables that day. So I'm going to go ahead and move on to our next component of a sustainably wholesome lifestyle. And that is talking about, you know what, I'm drawing a blank on where I am. Here, I'm going to start with Purify. So we're taking out some of the things that we don't need. So 2 things with Purifying. One, make sure you're staying very well hydrated during the winter time. For us as women, it's really hard sometimes to remember to drink water during the winter when we're not, maybe if you're not exercising that much, you're not getting hot, it's hard to remember to keep water. So maybe even just some herbal tea. Right now I have a Happy Tummy peppermint tea that I really enjoy. I put it in cold water. I didn't warm it up tonight. I was feeling a little warm, so I thought I'm just going to drink it cold, and you can infuse it like that. Drink out of glass if you can, or stainless steel versus plastic water bottles. We're thinking about the influence of toxins upon our immune system. Toxins can be like a constant drain on the immune system. So I'm talking about things like BPA or the BP whatever that's in plastic. Even if it says it's BPA free, it doesn't mean that it's going to be helpful for your body or your hormonal balance. So I really like to stick with glass or stainless steel. I use a filtered water from a Berkey filter that I really, really like. The taste is excellent. It doesn't have any aftertaste, and I really, now that I've been used to that for a few years, whenever I go somewhere else, I can really taste the water. So in the long run, we've saved money from using a Brita pitcher, and it filters out the chlorine, fluoride, that type of thing. So I'll be sending that along to you so you can take a look at that one. But water is important for hydrating your cells and also helping you to kind of keep those mucous membrane passages of your upper respiratory tract very fluid. So versus this is being very congested, help move everything out of your respiratory passage. You need to be able to do that. It also helps you with elimination. So we might not necessarily think bowel movements when we think about immunity, but gut being the first sign of immune health. If you're having problems, having a bowel movement at least 1 time a day that's nice and well formed. If you're my client, you know we talk about poop a lot. We need to talk. We need to do something about that. And I don't mean add in tons of like Metamucil fiber. I'm talking about figuring out why you may not be eliminating like you need to. If you're not eliminating daily, then you're not like, quote, taking out the trash like you need to be. And that's a problem. Those toxins can build up and cause a problem for the body's immune system. Sometimes it even means that if someone's constipated, I often see a relation to sinus congestion, like you constantly have sinus congestion. So that's one thing we need to make sure. If you're not drinking at least half of your body weight in fluid ounces of water a day, that's a first place to start. And then you can go from there. Okay, I'm gonna go and take a drink while we're talking. Other thing I've already mentioned, the teas. So herbal teas count for that kind of thing as long as not caffeinated. If you need to add some flavor to your water, put some frozen berries in there or some herbs that you like. Have something left over, citrus rind, throw that in there and kind of let it infuse throughout the day. You can find lots of examples for that kind of thing online. It's just drinking it that you have to. Sometimes you even have to set a reminder on your phone to drink some water. And for your kids too, if my kids complain of being tired, complain of being hungry, or complain of having a headache, the first thing I tell them is, okay, go drink some water. And they know that their task in the morning, the first thing they have to do is get their water bottle out and fill it up. in big trouble if they don't do that, because we start the day with being hydrated. So a good thing to do is even wake up and drink 8 ounces of water in the morning. If you can drink 8 ounces of water with some lemon or lime juice in there, that's even a secondary benefit, helps kind of jumpstart your digestive system. That's really nice too. When we talk about Purify as well, there was something else I was going to bring up for you. We may also talk about some herbs that are helpful, but one thing I like to use is something called a throat spray. This is a brand, I use their droppers for immune support as well when someone does get sick, but this can be used on an ongoing basis. It's called Biocidin throat spray. And because kind of your respiratory tract, when you're breathing things in, if you're on a closed space like an airplane because you're traveling, you're in an enclosed room with people, even if you work in an office where there are lots of people around, a few sprays of this a day is going to go, a few sprays a day is going to be very helpful for helping to maintain immunity at the first line of defense. That or just gargling with some salt water. So I use Redmond's real salt a lot, adding about a fourth a teaspoon of that in a little cup of water, warm water, and gargling that. Very good antiseptic, help your body kind of cleanse that before it starts to go further down in your system. So that's another option for purifying. And the last thing I'm going to say, ladies, I know we're getting toward Christmas season and fall, and you'd love to have those scented candles out and feel so welcoming in your home. But I'm going to tell you, those scented candles can be airborne toxins that just build up in your home, and your body has to process through those. So please don't hate me, but I love candles too. So what I will do is I will light beeswax candles in my home. I love to have candles. So I have some antique pewter holders, some beeswax candles that I love. And you may be able to find some non-toxic candles other places. I know that there are some. Then if I want scent, I will simmer on the stove some cinnamon sticks or some bay leaves or orange leaves or cloves, depends on what I have on hand. If you have extra orange peeling from where you peeled your citrus, throw that in a pot or put it in a container in the freezer, and when you have enough, you can simmer it. But that can go for quite a few days, or you can get an essential oil diffuser. I'm not going to really talk about oils tonight as much, but you can diffuse some essential oils that will be good for immunity. Tea tree and peppermint make a nice combination there. But unplug the scented things from the walls and blow out your scented candles. Let's make things smell nice, and so your body doesn't have that immune burden and the toxins it's going to have to process. Then the other thing we need to make sure we think about is movement. And I like to say movement versus exercise. Gentle movement, even if it's cold outside, bundling up and moving your body, even if it's 5 minutes after a meal, it's going to help your body de-stress. And just moving around is going to help things like your lymphatic flow in your body to kind of move things along. It can also help if you are not having regular bowel movements to move. So just start somewhere. You can start with a few steps. I like to look on my phone on the Apple section. It will tell me how many steps a day I've walked, or get a pedometer. I like to think about that a lot more than like an exercise. I'm not an exercise fanatic. I'm not a runner. Some of you are, and I'm really proud of you. But sometimes for me, it's just getting moving, being outside in nature. And that's just as important as like how many steps I might get on a treadmill. So if you can get outside, that's going to be very, very, very important. The other thing that we'll talk about, we need to talk about a little bit more quickly, is community. So this might be something that you don't necessarily think about when you think about staying well, and some of you try to stay away from people in the wintertime, but coming together with other women, or if you're a man, or families with other families during the winter season is going to be very important for you to connect with people, because that itself helps decrease your stress load. When you have a chance to unburden yourself with someone else, to talk with them and connect. If you can't get out, talk on the phone at least, but talking face to face is so important. And my symbol for that is a teapot. I love tea. And so sharing the pot of tea with someone, and it doesn't have to be fancy form of entertaining. Maybe you go out somewhere to do that, but sharing some time where you're looking face to face at someone else, enjoying their company and talking about things that are important to you can go a long way to supporting your immune system. Involve your children in that. So maybe it's something you do as a family. In my family, in the afternoons, we try to make a habit of having tea time together. Maybe read a book together that we like, or it's mainly my children, so my husband's at work. And then having some type of fun snack. That's where you can incorporate some of the teas. Like another one I really like is this ginger aid tea. Has some stevia leaves in there, some blackberry leaf, and some ginger, which is nice and anti-inflammatory. That's a fun thing to have. You don't have to have tea. You can have something cold if you don't like tea. But that's a good chance to connect and have time with other people. And let's see. The last thing I'll talk about in terms of my total 7 foundations of a sustainably wholesome lifestyle is creating. And so if you are frazzled, you're not going to feel like creating. But a good antidote for stress is to create something beautiful, or to enjoy something that is beautifully created. Maybe it's art or music. Maybe it's a perfectly organized room, or maybe you really just like helping to arrange flowers or cook for someone. I recently took up some watercolor. Past few months, I had a family member who had some surgery, and I brought watercolors with us, and we just spent an evening after she was feeling better doing some doodling. And I've had so much fun with that. It was a huge stress relief for me. And we'd been up late and up early, and I think just time to connect together and do something fun was good. There's actually even some research that people with Alzheimer's disease who do not have memory anymore still have imagination. So if some of you are working with loved ones who maybe even have some cognitive impairment now and memory, they can't really even remember you, maybe bringing in some things that you can do together like that it's something that's enjoyable and relaxing, and a good thing to think about for supporting yourself during a time of stress. We don't have many minutes before we're going to wrap up, and we didn't get everything in, but I'm going to show you a few more products that I have right now. And then I'm going to be sending a lot of things your way. So I just want you to be on the lookout the next few days as I send along little taste and samples of what I use to create a sustainably wholesome lifestyle. So I'm going to pick 3 more of my top favorite things to use for immune support. And then the rest is going to come to you soon. Okay. So one of them that I could not be able to do without is vitamin D. And so I talked about, if you have an autoimmune condition, you have to be very careful with what you use for immune support in terms of herbs and nutrients that could, not necessarily nutrients, herbs that can influence your TH1, TH2 balance. But vitamin D is one of those essential nutrients. It's actually not necessarily a vitamin as much as it is a hormone. And your body absorbs it from and can convert it from sunshine. But in the wintertime, we're not getting any sun. We don't make vitamin D in the winter. We can't even absorb and make it at a certain latitude. So I'm in Nashville, and above Birmingham latitude in the United States, you could not even make vitamin D in the wintertime. So I bring this in about a dose of 2,000 international units a day minimum during the winter. But if you've been tested low vitamin D, then I bring it more than that. The other thing I combine with vitamin D would be the magnesium that we discussed, and some vitamin K2. So I actually, most of the time, use a liquid vitamin D with K2 in it, because those 3 kind of work together. Sometimes people start dosing a lot of vitamin D and they start having more aches and pains, or they deplete their levels of those other nutrients. So it's really important to put those together. One thing we test for in my with my clients, and we like to know what your vitamin D status is. Going to influence your immunity, but also your mood. And it's also going to regulate like those tight junctions in your intestine that help keep you safe. And keep your intestine from being more leaky. So heard the term leaky gut. Vitamin D is very important for that. Another thing I'm gonna pull in is some in terms of a supplement. This is called curcuma veil. It's a type of turmeric supplement. Actually, the other day I had a child who was starting to have a little sniffle, and we had been around some people with colds, and I gave her one of these. So this is a little bit longer, but it's very thin, and has a very absorbable form of turmeric, the active compound called curcumin. And this is really a good substitute for ibuprofen. So if you're feeling achy and things like that, it's really nice that you do not have to take an ibuprofen, which lends more toward leaky gut, but this is very, very effective. Because it also acts as a potent anti-inflammatory, can help calm down an inflammatory reaction, and you may not even develop the symptoms of a cold. And then the last thing we'll pull in is some probiotics. So there's many different types of probiotics, but I like to keep a baseline level of that or cultured foods. But if you can't do a cultured food, even little bitty babies who have been born via C-section, I like to support with some probiotics. If you're breastfeeding mama, you can take probiotics yourself, and that will help your baby. Your baby's already getting good probiotics through your breast milk. but that will help influence your intestinal tract and kind of helps just kind of mediate some things. So I like to start at a baseline of at least like 15 to 20 billion CFUs, colony forming units, a day. And then we may go further than that if you need a little bit extra support, or the other probiotic that I bring in, if you've had antibiotics, is something, it's actually a beneficial yeast. And so I'll link to that as well. But you've stuck around to the end of the webinar, and I really, really am so thankful that you're here. And thank you for spending the evening with me. Like I said, I'm going to have more things coming your way. You'll get second and third and fourth helpings of some immune support. But as a thank you for joining us tonight, and just an incentive to help build your arsenal of nutrient-dense supplies, I'm going to be giving you 10% off of my online dispensary. And that will be, if you're already a client, then you get an extra 10% off. So email me if you need help doing that. But that is through my dispensary called Full Script. And it is, I want to make sure that you're buying your supplements from a reputable source. Like I said, not Amazon. That is not a reputable source. We don't know how long it's been sticking around on the shelf there. And a reputable brand. It's been third-party tested. So I'm going to just kind of go toward the end of this right now, and go back for a second. So if you're wanting and interested in working further with me, I'd be happy to chat with you. I'm also offering, any of you who have not worked with me before, a complimentary strategy session, and we can see what we can do to help if you feel like you just can't get out of this immune hole and yourself, you need some help strategizing what does your body need to stay well for the winter, or just long-term. I specialize in working with women who have autoimmune conditions, and particularly Hashimoto's, but also MS and Sjogren's and lupus and those types of conditions where it's really just hard for our body to recover, but we can turn things around. Also, if you have inflammatory bowel disease or IBS, I can help you turn those types of conditions around. In 10 to 14 days, we start seeing improvement. So that's kind of when your immune system kind of goes haywire with some of these things. And we have to do a little bit more than just eat good foods. But I can help you with that one. I'll be sending some more things your way. And if you have questions from this webinar, I'm not sure if I've necessarily figured out the chat function on this yet. So what I want you to do is just send me a question via email, and I'm going to take some time to do either Facebook Live or some other quick videos that I'll send to you in your email that will answer some of those questions. And I appreciate you sticking around with me. I hope you have a wonderful evening, and here's to a wholesome holidays.